Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Barner here, Overtime Athletes. So for today's video, I'd like to address a topic sometimes I don't have too many videos on, and that's agility. And that's how to be training for agility. Essentially, agility is the sport-specific movement, the change of direction, the sport-specific movement that you're actually performing in your actual sport. So while all these speed and power and strength is great, that taking that speed and power and being able to transition it over to sport-specific movement, change of direction movement, reaction movement is really essentially what we're trying to do with our training sessions. So to break it down and for you guys to have a better clarity of it as I go into more agility things and actually bring in somebody who I think is an expert on agility, a good buddy of mine, I'll introduce him later, but I wanted to break down a video of two things or two factors that you should be focusing on when it comes to agility. So agility, when you break it down, it comes down to velocity and perception. So there's two different factors that you can begin to train. What you want to do as an athlete is you want to identify the things that you might be weak in. Usually, typically, what I see is either an athlete has a very low baseline of both of these factors, or they tend to favor one or the other. And what you want to do there is you want to be able to build up that weakness within them. If you think of this, you think of a really, to give you an example, you think of one of those athletes who is very strong and powerful, but very stiff in the hips, right? They'll probably need something more like a perception or, to work their fluidity. So to go through these real quick, velocity, it deals with a series of things such as technique. Obviously, this is more sport specific. You want to have great technique on the actual movements that you're going to perform in your competition. You have acceleration and deceleration. Having the athlete properly or being able to quickly change directions, you need to be able to properly accelerate or produce force and decelerate, absorb force. Then we have power strength, which is a given. Everything that we're doing when it comes to squats or any kind of unilateral movements and all these weightlifting movements, we want to be able to transition that power and strength that we're building within the body and be able to transfer it over to movements that we're actually performing in competition. And then balance, being able to have a strong, stable base that you're operating out of, that foundation. I talk a lot about structural integrity. I talk a lot about core training, things that will go ahead and increase your ability to have great balance. Then on the flip side, you have what we refer to as, perception. So with perception, you have, first of all, reaction. Reaction being the rate or response time, from perception or how we perceive things to actually acting upon it within a game situation. Anticipation is essentially being able to predict, based on your knowledge of the sport, being able to predict how somebody's going to move. Awareness and knowledge of sport, this comes from a lot of game experience or knowing what your opponent's going to do in a certain situation. You might know the down and distance, you might know the amount of balls and strikes, and having that knowledge of sport and really watching film is going to increase your ability to actually have better movement on the field. So there's two sides of it when it comes down to it, velocity and perception. And most people think that perception is just trained on the field or in the classroom when you're watching film, but there is components that you can get better on. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of perception is trained outside of the field or, court, whatever it may be. And studying your opponent. However, there are things that you can start to compartmentalize or put in a vacuum and start to isolate and train on their own to be able to build up that weakness within you. So the key factor is to be able to determine which weaknesses you have within and be able to focus on building those up to increase your overall sport-specific agility, and that will make you a better athlete. I hope that helps. I'll get into this deeper as I go along, and I'll holler at you guys next time. Yo, what's going on, fellas? Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in getting faster as an athlete, go ahead and click my advanced series right here where I provide you with free lessons to make you become faster. I'll see you inside.